listening to Game On DC, your home for local gaming and esports news in the DMV. Find the show on social media at Game On DC and by using the hashtag GoDC. Without further ado, here are your hosts, John and Joey.
What is up, DMV, and welcome to Game On DC, the show dedicated to you, the gamers and esports fanatics, right here in the East Coast capital of esports. My name is John Fiasco Byram, alongside Joey Courtside King McDermott. Joey, happy Monday. I can't think of a better way to wrap up a Monday than right here on Game On DC.
Absolutely, sir. Not a ton to cover this week, but we do still have quite a bit happening in DMV esports, so getting excited to dive into it and talk a little bit about as we head into the offseason as well.
Absolutely. So yeah, just a few little pieces of homework here real quick. Obviously, the best place to experience Game On DC is going to be on our live show here on Twitch. That is 8 p.m. Eastern time. That's twitch.tv/OTN Media. But have no fear, we do have a podcast version of the show as well. It's called Game On DC. Very simple to remember. Just look it up on, I believe the main ones are iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher, but pretty much you can find it anywhere else. An RSS feed is found for podcasts. Again, just look up Game On DC. And since you're watching and listening to the show already, you might as well be following the show on social media as well. If you want to be in the know with everything that is happening in the DMV for gaming and esports news with all of our amazing esports teams here, make sure you follow Game On DC. Twitter, Instagram, Game On DC. It's very simple, at Game On DC. It's super simple. And on top of it, one more piece of homework. Make sure you follow your favorite DMV host. That's Joey at Courtside King, myself at Fiasco. If you're here watching live on Twitch, those handles are right below our camera images right now. You just copy that down, put it in Twitter and find it, because Twitter is the only social media platform currently working, Joey. And then if you are listening to the podcast version, they'll be in the show notes for you below. How about that, Joey? Facebook, Instagram, everything's down except for Twitter. It feels like it's great, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'd be fine if Facebook just stayed down at this point. But
says the guy who doesn't have a Facebook account anymore.
Absolutely, I have moved on from Facebook, and I think the rest of the world should too. But we'll see what happens. See if it comes back up.
I love it, Joey. Let's go ahead and kick it off. We're going to start with our two-time champs here in our own backyard for WizDG. Not a lot of news revolving around the team, more so things that are going to affect the team going forward into the 2022 season. First and foremost, it is a Monday. I'm still trying to learn how to speak. NBA 2K League scouting grounds on the PS4 and 5 have begun. That is the first step in the process of qualifying to become eligible to be drafted in the 2K League. It's a great way to be seen by a lot of the teams out there. I know a lot of coaches, a lot of scouts for these organizations spend a lot of time watching. Definitely follow those teams' social media as well, because they'll put out times when the coach is sitting down in the office with his staff, with the rest of the organization, saying, hey, we're going to be on Twitch between 3 and 5 p.m. Eastern time. Shoot us your tag, shoot us your link. Maybe we'll tune in. It's a great way to get noticed. I think that's one thing the 2K League has done a great job at, is kind of, allowing those players who want to be noticed to really make that push and prove their worth for the 2K League.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a great time. We've seen it season over season where a lot of players have either stepped up as they were expecting to, or maybe some players from out of the blue come through as well. In the end, if you're looking to become a professional 2K League player, this is definitely the first steps. Get out there, start streaming if you haven't already. That's another great way to do it. While it doesn't count toward your stats necessarily, it's a good way to get your image already out there.
All right. Then the next piece of news coming out of the 2K League, and this is where things start to get fun. The NBA 2K League announced its 24th team joining the league. That is Team Ducks Gaming, originally based out of Spain. Their NBA 2K League team is going to be based out of Mexico. Their headquarters will be in Mexico. They will be the first truly internationally based team in the NBA 2K League. And if you're sitting there going, John, what are you talking about? Gen G Tigers are Shanghai. Hello, it says Shanghai in the name. Yeah, well, they're also based at the University of Kentucky and not Shanghai. So yes, they are technically international, but Ducks Gaming is going to be based out of Mexico. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. Joey, it's the second non-NBA backed organization to join this league, and they're making true to their promise to really take this league global.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the next step for the NBA 2K League. How can they continue to expand? Doing so in Shanghai was a big move, with China already being such huge viewership numbers of the NBA. Now doing it here with Mexico, it's another market to move into, another way to continue to expand that overall branding. The thing that gets me most, though, John, $25 million is what they ended up paying for this spot, a very high valuation from what we expected from the NBA 2K League.
Which makes me curious. I'm curious as to what Gen G had to pay to get into the league. Obviously, with everyone else, they're backed by an NBA organization, so maybe those terms are a little bit different, because the NBA CBA actually goes into a lot of this too, especially in terms of how money is being handled, marketing is being done. There's a lot of nooks and crannies in those agreements that the 2K League has to abide by. So I'd kind of be interested to see what the Gen G spot went for. Maybe we can hopefully try to find that out, maybe bring that to you next week. But yeah, 25 mil, that's spicy. That's a lot of money. But Joey, you said the E word, which is expand. I believe I said it too, so I won't put all the blame on you. But when a league expands, it usually means that there is an expansion draft. And if you're a WizDG fan, you have to be nervous right now. This is a team coming in. Their current roster for 2K is not going to be the team that goes into the league. It's just not. It's an amateur squad, essentially, in comparison to the 2K League. They will have to create a brand new roster. And just like when we saw the Hornets and Gen G come into the league, there's going to be an expansion draft. Now, that's going to take place November 17th. They may not be the only team. We don't know if there's going to be any more expansions coming this offseason or not, but November 17th is going to be the next expansion draft. And if it holds up right now, the official terms of the expansion draft haven't been released, but if we're going off of what we saw in 2019, what we can expect is 3 picks for Team Ducks, and they are going to select any 3 players they want that's not protected. So every team can protect 2 players. Sometimes you can protect more at the cost of draft picks, but going into this, I believe it is just 2. But the big thing here is if you're a team and one of your players gets selected, you get essentially a compensation pick. I believe it was a 2nd rounder in the last expansion draft, which if you're a WizDG fan and you're sitting here going like, okay, if they take someone from our squad, who's it going to be? Joey, let's talk a little hypothetical here real quick. If I'm head coach Pat Crossan, if I'm the WizDG management staff, the first 2 people that come to my mind, and this is not a knock against any other player, is Dave Fry and JBM. Those are your cornerstones of this team. That is your foundation of this team. Finding a good center and finding a good point guard, a consistent center and a consistent point guard, is very, very, very difficult in this league. Now, that being said, I wouldn't rule out any, head coach Pat Crossan or anyone else trying to make a move to protect more players. But right now, Joey, those are the 2 that I would protect.
Yeah, I really think if you ask 99% of the fan base, I think those are the 2 players they protect as well. Now, if that ends up being the case, if we protect JBM and Dave Fry, I think that leaves Just Awkward up for a very possible pickup, Nudini up for a possible pickup. I mean, we're talking about Nudini's been to 3 championships at this point. Just Awkward's just coming off winning Defensive Player of the Year. If you're a WizDG fan, I would be surprised if we're able to return all these players.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I'm being honest, if I'm Ducks Gaming and I saw Just Awkward was available, I'm taking him 100%. Reigning Defensive Player of the Year, be a cornerstone of your defense for that brand new team. We've seen him drop 39 points this past season as well. He knows how to score. He knows how to play defense. If I'm this new team, I'd be going after Just Awkward. As much as I hate to say that, being a WizDG fan, that's someone that's on my target list. And there's a very big possibility that might happen. Now, Joey, let me throw a little wrinkle in here before we move on to our next segment here. There was that Forbes article. I don't want to dive too much into it because there's not a lot more information that came out from it. But Dave Fry mentioned that, eventually he wants to get to the point where he's opening a food truck with his dad back in Texas. It doesn't sound like it's going to be this year, but it may be in a year or 2. Does WizDG want to dedicate that spot to Dave Fry if he might be leaving in a year? That's something that they might want to ask. Not saying they should or shouldn't, just a hypothetical that's put out there. The other thing that was said, JBM looking to go to college. How is that going to work out? Obviously, the league's played in the summertime mostly, but how is that going to work out? Is he going to be able to be a full-time student and be a pro gamer? Is he going to go to college, or is he going to delay it? So many questions out there. So if JBM ends up leaving, then now you have another slot that you can protect. Then who would you protect then? Would it be just awkward?
Yeah, and I mean, I think these conversations are probably happening behind closed doors as well. Like WizDG as an organization is going to know what JBM is currently thinking, what Dave Fry is currently thinking, and I'm sure all of this does get evaluated. In that, if it does end up one of them leaves and one stays, just awkward's that next pick.
All right, so there's a whole bunch of speculation going on right now. We don't have the answers. We just have opinions, and that's perfectly fine. We would love to hear your opinions on this as well. Who do you think WizDG will protect going into the expansion draft? Who do you think the new team, Team Ducks, is going to take in the expansion draft? There's going to be 3 picks. Their last 3 players are going to come via the 2022 draft. It's going to be really exciting, and I'm actually really excited for this expansion draft, mainly because this new team coming in has such a rich esports history, and I think can really shake up the 2K League quite a bit.
Absolutely. It'll be exciting to see who we end up landing with for next season.
All right, Joey, let's move on to our other favorite esports team here in the area that just finished up their season as well. That, of course, is the Washington Justice. Joey, it is Bloody Monday for a lot of rosters here in the Overwatch League. A lot of announcements of players' contracts ending, maybe some are being released. Obviously, if a team's saying goodbye, obviously they're not under contract. I know Pre did an entire stream on, the difference between being a free agent or being under contract and being allowed to talk to other teams. Because it feels like every Overwatch League offseason, there's like this gray area for a lot of fans out there to figure out, what does it mean to be a free agent? Are you still under contract, or are you not under contract? If you're a free agent, you're not under contract. It's simple as that. So it's really awesome. It's really cool stuff here. So a lot of new players testing free agency, and the rosters are going to be shucking up here. And Joey, we're seeing 3 departures right now from the Washington Justice already.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say if we're looking at all the rosters in the league, the Justice probably got hit one of the lightest in a sense. Like we lost some players and we've lost some big players, but we haven't turned over our whole roster like some of these other teams in the league have. So looking at it closely, Closer is out. He was a support player for the Justice, played as a starting support for the majority of the year. Sometimes the next player who's out, Tuba, would sub in for him. Tuba originally coming to the team as a DPS and then kind of transitioning it into a flex role. And last but not least, we did lose one of our coaches in Hawkery, also departing the Washington Justice. So overall, John, you're looking at a support, a flex support / DPS, and then a assistant coach leaving here as well.
And by no means, like we said, the Justice are not alone in making these moves. Please do remember, Overwatch 2 is coming next year, whether we like it or not. We're going to go from 6 players down to 5. We are going to be losing that off-tank role. I expect to see a lot more off-tanks have to adapt into a new role, or we're going to see a lot of them be released or not re-signed or signed at all. And that's going to shake up the ecosystem when it comes to Overwatch League. I mean, you're taking a look at what? 20 teams that are, that's 20 players out of a job. Let's say there's 20 teams. It's 20 players out of a job that are now going to have to kind of retool their own skill set into either being a main tank and fight for a starting position or a sub position, or they're going to have to do the same thing as switching to a DPS or switching to a healer. There's a ton of just question marks around how this whole thing is going to work. But right now it's step 1 in that process. And that is the departure of all these players and coaches on these rosters that are out of a contract. Maybe they're being released from their contract, but all the teams are doing it, and it just felt like the floodgates opened today when it came to these announcements.
Yeah, the last couple of days have just been absolutely insane for Overwatch League news in terms of roster turnover. The other thing to say here is, so Closer's out, Tuba's out, and Hawkery's out. That does not mean every other player is staying either. Correct. It just means that they have not been released or they've not chosen to leave at this point. So like your Decays, your Furies, they could still be in contract negotiations. There could be trades possibly involved. Maybe some of their contracts are longer term and they don't expire this year. So there's a lot of different factors going in there. So don't just assume the rest of the roster stays the same, as there could be more changes incoming as well.
It'll be very interesting to see. Again, new game modes are coming in Overwatch 2. We're dropping control points. There's so many things that are going to be changing for Overwatch League next year. Again, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Expect the rest of it to come during the off season. It may be a whole new looking league come next year. There's a very good chance of it. But again, we will do our best to keep you up to date with all the information coming out from the Overwatch League and the Washington Justice as that information does come out. Joey, I'm excited to see what this new game is going to look like. I'm excited to see how the Overwatch League is going to adapt to it. And I think the fan base has something to be excited for here.
Absolutely. And just one more thing to say on that. So official rosters do not have to be, 6 players on an official roster do not have to be assigned until January. So they do have some time. It could be a little bit of a slower transfer window depending on how teams end up playing it out. But the official stuff into the league, I believe, is January 3rd, if I remember correctly. It's very early in January. They have to have at least 6 players signed at that point.
All right, so keep an eye for that. January, Joey, is just like 3 months away, and I don't like that. I like it because I like the wintertime, but that's about it. Yeah, I can't believe it's October already. It just feels so weird.
It's moving quick. It's been a very, very quick year for sure.
It is. And speaking about moving quick, Joey, we had some high octane action here for the Mid-Atlantic Esports Conference, as well as collegiate esports transitions into the main focus right now with all of our pro teams currently in the off season. Joey, we're going to talk a little bit about the Rocket League scene first. Obviously, we know a little bit more about that because we're kind of casting the whole thing. So we'll start with that here first. Let me go ahead and bring that up on screen, Joey. There's 2 divisions in the Rocket League fall season right now. And just to do a quick recap here, Averett University took down Marymount University 2-0 in their best of 3. Randolph-Macon took down George Mason's C team 2-0 as well. GW, George Washington University's Buff team 2-0 over Howard Community College's number 2 team. Mount St. Mary's, newcomers to the Rocket League division this year, dropping their opening game to Shenandoah University's B squad, the runners up from last year's championship. George Mason C then dropped to George Washington Buff. Again, we'll have to double check that's right. 2-1, GW taking the win there. VCU Black had a bye in week 1 for the Challenger division.
Okay, one thing to say here, in case you guys are like me and you didn't understand what buff was, buff is actually a shade of gold, according to GW. So just so you guys know that, because I'm expecting some big, muscly GW team. That was not the case. Not that I saw any of the players, but I did learn buff was a shade of gold a little bit later in the night.
It was, yeah. You know what? It's something that caught me off guard, too. I think I went to a George Mason GW basketball game up in D.C., and their cheerleaders were like, let's go Buff, let's go Blue. And I'm like, what's Buff? I had to ask a GW fan. I'm like, can someone fill me in here? And this was years ago. And they're like, yeah, that's our school colors. I'm like, what color exactly is Buff? And it was gold. Apparently it's gold. So there you go. I mean, you weren't the only one. I was there before too, Joey. It's fine.
There you go. So fun fact of the night, Game on DC listeners. Get a little color lesson in here as well.
There you go. So that was the Challenger Division results for the Capital Division, broken up into divisions this year. Hood College dropping the opening match to Northern Virginia Community College 2-0. George Mason B against ODU Monarchs had to be rescheduled due to player availability. VCU Gold dropping in the opening week match to Howard Community College. Then GW's Georges. Joey, see, look, just real quick. If you're going to name your one team Buff, you're going to go with school colors. I would expect you to name the other one the other school color. But instead, it's the George Washington University Georges. So I'm hoping that every single player's IRL name starts with George.
Yeah, maybe it's one of those things, because what are they? They're the Colonials, I think, normally. Maybe they're moving to the Buff Georges.
The Buff Georges.
That would be kind of interesting.
There you go. Does that mean the George is gold, or they're just actually buff?
I'm thinking if it's a sports team, you probably want to go with the Buff, but who knows? I mean, they're changing things up on us over here with Georges and the Buff.
Absolutely. And then Game 5, this one was the one that I had circled on my calendar, Joey, and unfortunately it did have to get rescheduled as well due to player availability. George Mason University's A team against the champions Shenandoah A. If you recall, Joey and the rest of the DMV, Shenandoah A was the winners, but George Mason University A was undefeated in the regular season, and they lost to Shenandoah in the playoffs. I believe a lot of people had George Mason A team as the favorites going into it, but they dropped early and kind of shocked everyone, and it was an all Shenandoah final because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. GMUA was a heavy favorite throughout last season back in the spring. They looked phenomenal, undefeated in the regular season, and they did end up dropping to Shenandoah A, who ended up going on to be those champions, as you stated, John. Whenever this match does get played, this should be a good one to watch.
Absolutely. Then Howard Community College, their second game in week 1 resulted in a bye. And then ODU Monarchs taking down Hood College 2-1 in the very rare 3-game series. I believe it's the first one we had on. No, that one took place off stream. The one that was on stream was. No, we had one on stream. What is this? I think it was the George Mason game. The George Mason game was actually on stream.
Yeah, we definitely had one George Mason game on stream.
Yeah. That's the one it was. Yeah, because I remember how that game ended. That was absolutely crazy. That was the one where GW scored with 10 seconds left to tie it up, and then Mason scored like off the face-off to force game 3. It was absolutely insane. But Joey, the Rocket League action is off to a great start. It's exactly what we wanted to see. The reoccurring theme here was the returning teams that had that roster from last season definitely had the advantage against our newcomers and teams that had a brand new roster. That synergy and that chemistry was already there, and it showed.
Yeah, that was definitely a big theme of the night. The veteran teams coming out, showing that presence that they had in spring. Well, we did have some big newcomers to keep an eye on for this season as well. It'll be interesting moving from week 1 to week 2 to see what still shows out during that time. So I have a feeling the veterans, while they came in very strong, some of these new players I would not sleep on either. I feel like as they start to get that synergy together, as the passing gets a little bit cleaned up, we're going to see some of these newcomers really emerge.
Yeah, one newcomer that struck my fancy here a little bit is Arrow. Played out of his mind. First time in the spotlight on stream. Absolutely crushed it. Played very well. All right. And then, Joey, the Overwatch League division or tournament kicked off as well. We do not shoutcast that one. But nonetheless, that finished this past weekend as well. As I'm pulling up those results here for us now. Shenandoah Esports, Joey, is becoming the absolute powerhouse in the DMV at the moment. They finished first into the Overwatch tournament this past weekend. Randolph-Macon College finished second, and Northern Virginia Community College, the Nova Nighthawks, finishing third.
Yeah, really strong top 3, but you hit the big theme as well here. Shenandoah, after winning Rocket League in the spring, now coming back, showing a dominant performance to kick off Overwatch. They're definitely a school to look out for.
They're quickly becoming the golden standard here in the DMV when it comes to collegiate esports, playing very, very well. But nonetheless, Joey, more Mid-Atlantic Esports Conference action kicks off this week. Week 2 for Rocket League is on Wednesday. This Wednesday, the 6th, if my math is correct. 6:45 p.m. Eastern time starts the pregame show. All the action starts at 7 p.m. Eastern time as well. That's on the Mid-Atlantic Esports Twitch channel. So do swing by, check out that event as well. Support your local colleges. It's a lot of fun, a lot of great Rocket League activity and games going on there. So definitely swing by. And I believe it's going to be Overwatch again this weekend. I'll have to double check that. It might be League of Legends this Saturday. But nonetheless, more Mid-Atlantic Esports Conference coming up on Saturday as well. 12 p.m. is the Saturday kickoff for those events as well. All right, Joey. I think we actually covered everything. I'm actually pretty impressed with that. Is there anything else you want to cover before we finish it up here today?
I think that covers most of it. And for the record, guys, like with us heading into the offseason for WizDG and for Overwatch League, we might have a week off here or there depending on how things are going, but we'll be trying to cover a lot of the collegiate scene during that offseason, as well as keeping an eye on those roster moves and hopefully bringing you guys some fun interviews as well.
Absolutely. I believe we're going to try to get an interview on next week for everyone. So definitely stay tuned. Make sure you follow the social media as well, because when those announcements come out, that'll be the first place to find out is on social media. But for now, that will do it for this week's episode of Game on DC. If you do enjoy listening to Game on DC, we would love to hear from you. leave us a review on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. We would love to hear from you, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us on Twitch and all the social media as well, so you are up to date with everything happening here in the DMV for esports. Joey, where can our listeners go to follow Game On DC?
Absolutely, listeners. Thanks for your listenership. On top of that, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Game On DC. Additionally, we check the hashtag GoDC if you're using that as well. Last but not least, follow the umbrella company OTN Media on socials, as well as find us on YouTube and Twitch.
All right, make sure you tune in next Monday, the 11th of October, as we continue to cover the latest news and gaming and esports news. It's a Monday, Joey. I'm ready for bed. Gaming and esports news here in the DMV. Make sure you do your ears and eyes a favor. Hit that sub button and follow button here on Twitch and your podcatcher of choice, so you know when the next episode of Game On DC is ready for your listening and viewing pleasures. We'll catch you all on Monday. Enjoy the rest of your week, and as always,
Game on DC.